Today we read the end of an allegory that began in Revelation 12 and runs all the way through Revelation 13. The first part of the allegory concerned a woman who gives birth to a child. There's a dragon who sees that the child poses a very real threat to him, so he crouches in front of the woman, waiting to snatch the child the moment it is born. The allegory is this. The woman giving birth is Israel, and the child is the promised Messiah. So when the child is born, he is immediately taken up and seated on the throne of God. Then the woman flees into the wilderness to hide from the dragon. Now the woman represents the church, the new people of God, and the dragon, of course, represents Satan. The allegory continued yesterday with a beast that rose from the sea. The beast was given power by the dragon to rule over many people and nations. I didn't get into all the details of the description of the beast, but it represents the Roman Empire. Today, we read the end of the allegory, in which a second beast appears, and it is in this passage that we read about the so-called Mark of the Beast. Hello, I'm Stuart Baskin, pastor of First Presbyterian Church of Tyler, Texas, and this is your Daily Devotional for Tuesday, November 9th, 2021. Here's the story. Then I saw another beast that rose out of the earth. It had two horns like a lamb, and it spoke like a dragon. It exercises all the authority of the first beast on its behalf, and it makes the earth and its inhabitants worship the first beast, whose mortal wound has been healed. It performs great signs, even making fire come down from heaven to earth in the sight of all. And by the signs that it is allowed to perform on behalf of the beast, it deceives the inhabitants of the earth, telling them to make an image of the beast that had been wounded by the sword and yet lived. And it was allowed to give breath to the image of the beast, so that the image of the beast could even speak and cause those who would not worship the image of the beast to be killed. And it also causes all, both small and great, both rich and poor, both free and slave, to be marked on the right hand or the forehead, so that no one can buy or sell who does not have the mark, that is, the name of the beast or the number of its name. This calls for wisdom. Let anyone with understanding calculate the number of the beast, for it is the number of a person. Its number is 666. If this sounds terribly mysterious, let me try to demystify it. First, notice that this beast exercises authority on behalf of the first beast. That means that, like the first beast, its authority originates from somewhere else. The order of authority then is first Satan, the dragon, then Rome, the first beast, then the next level authority, which would be the emperor or Caesar, the second beast, exercising authority on behalf of Rome. All of the cryptic descriptions of the beast fit into this scenario. But what about that number? Here's where things get a little interesting and more than a little esoteric. So, first of all, when it comes to numbers, you and I are accustomed to Arabic numbers. But in the ancient world, instead of numbers, letters of the alphabet were pressed into service. You can see this in Roman numerals. But in Hebrew and other languages, including Greek, each letter of the alphabet represented numbers, not quite in the same way as either Roman numerals or Arabic numerals. The systems were just different. But one of the consequences was that one could use numbers to refer to more than just numbers. They could become a sort of code. Words could represent numbers, and in turn, a number could be used as a sort of secret code for represented words or names. Which brings me to the number 666. In Hebrew, the letters of the name and title Neron Caesar happen to add up to, you guessed it, 666. Now, notice that this includes a letter we don't usually use in Nero's name. Well, two things come into play here. There are ancient Hebrew manuscripts in which Nero's name is spelled Neron with an N at the end. Also, there are some ancient copies of Revelation in which instead of the number 666, it is the number 616, which is the sum of the words Nero Caesar without the N. I know. This is really esoteric. But it makes perfect sense. Think about it. Caesar, the second beast, exercises power on behalf of Rome, the first beast, and Rome in turn is granted power by Satan, represented by the dragon. Nero becomes the symbol of demonic power turned against the church. There's only one problem with this, and you may have already spotted it. By the time John wrote this letter, Nero was long dead, and Domitian was emperor. This is exactly why John says, "This calls for wisdom. Let anyone with understanding calculate the number of the beast, for it is the number of a person." He was speaking in code, which he had to do for the safety and security of the churches, which were already under threat of persecution. He couldn't very well mention Rome, let alone Domitian by name. But why Nero? Simple. In the first place, everyone in the church would still have remembered the persecutions years before under Nero, and in the second place, everyone in the church would have known that when you were talking in the present tense about Nero, what you really meant was Domitian. It may sound a little far-fetched, but it is a much simpler and much cleaner explanation than all the complicated ways that people have identified the beast with anyone and anything from the Prophet Muhammad to some future unified world government. Quite a stretch, if you ask me. But if the purpose of Revelation is to reassure frightened first century Christians that God is ultimately in charge of their current situation, and if Roman authority was their current threat, well, it makes complete sense to identify the beast with Caesar without resorting to highly abstract speculation in order to guess what future figure John might have had in mind. So, when you hear about the mark of the beast, remember Caesar. Tomorrow, another group with marks on their heads. But in the meantime, may God continue to bless you and keep you in all that you do this day and in all the days ahead.